This is Take Me Out, the ultimate podcast about ballparks and the baseball experience. It's the week of February 5th, 2025. I'm Alexandra Ellis, and I'm joining my friend, Timothy Malcolm.
What's up, baseball fans? I am Timothy Malcolm. You can call me Tim. You can call me T-Malcolm. You can call me whatever the heck you want, as long as it's not a bad word. How about that? Welcome to Take Me Out. Alex, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you, T-Mac? I like that one. Well, that's Tracy McGrady. Tim. Team Malk. Okay.
So when I was,
that makes
quick story, because we'll do this a lot. When I was in college, back in the early 2000s, I was known as T-Malk by a lot of my friends who I worked at the newspaper office with. I worked at this independent student newspaper, and it was all student run, no adults in the room ever. So I was known as T-Malk because there was Tim during the day when things were fine, but then when things got a little nutty and we needed a wild card to come out, T-Malk would come out.
So like the Frank the Tank, I guess.
Kind of the Frank the Tank, a little bit of I'll be honest, a little bit of a ladies' man. I'm just going to say. T-Malk was known to have fun at the parties, but T-Malk is way in the past. He's gone. He's not here anymore. He will not come out anywhere. Certainly not at a baseball game, which is why we're here, baseball games. This is the first podcast. The first episode of the podcast, Take Me Out. I'm very excited to do this, and we can't wait to give you a really great podcast every single week. It's going to be a lot of fun to do this. We have a couple things that we want to do before we get into the meat of this episode. Today's episode is mostly going to be an FAQ, kind of just a straight up question and answer. I asked people questions on Facebook at the Ballpark Chasers Facebook group, which I'll talk about later, but mostly just quick questions and some broader questions about going to ballparks and making trips to ballparks and what do you try to do when you go to a ballpark? How do you make these trips happen? Essentially, it's travel planning, and we're going to do a lot of Q&A about that. But this podcast is going to be more than just travel planning. It's going to be about the baseball experience and going to ball games and sharing our stories and our lives together and all that kind of fun stuff. So, I asked you how you were in the open, Alex, but we're ready for, it's February. It's February. Like, spring training is literally days away. Pitchers and catchers reporting in the next week or so. What's your excitement level?
It's up there, man. Like, I think today is the truck day for the Astros. I believe the media is actually there. They've already released all the promo schedules and all the items and everything for 2025. And it's happening. We just need to get the loose ends tied up for all the free agents still out there. But man, I'm so excited.
So you're an Astros fan?
A little bit.
Lifelong? Okay.
Yeah.
A little bit?
A couple things. Yeah.
And I'm a Phillies fan for all, just to get it out there right in the open.
We're still good from 2022, right? We're good.
Honestly, well, after the news of yesterday with what's his face, the umpire for yeah, I'm a little bit now. I immediately said to my work friends, I said, do we have to recount the 2022 World Series? Do we have to is there a stop no, I'm not going to say that. But is there a recount situation that has to happen? Am I going to have to protest the outcome of the 2022 World Series? It's possible. It's possible.
That was our first. Oh man, everything's going to Astros.
Your first what? Your first what, Alex? Your first. What are you going to say?
I'm trying to. Oh my gosh, I don't want to. Let's go for it. Yes, let's do that. Oh my, I can't win. I can't win in this. Yeah.
Because I have my own vision for what this podcast is, but I asked you to be on this podcast. So what do you want this podcast to be going forward?
Man, I kind of tie it into myself a little bit. Just visiting ballparks is absolutely incredible. It's a wonderful experience. Just meeting new people, going to new cities and everything. And I have had so much fun doing it. And I want to share that with everybody. And I'm still continuing to do it because I haven't done all 30 ballparks yet. But it's such a great experience doing it. Just being able to share that with everybody, getting tips from everybody, giving tips to everybody. This communication with all baseball fans. Introducing new fans to the new ballparks. People don't even know they want to start doing this. I think it's be a really good introduction for that. And as the baseball world is constantly in flux, finding out new things to do, new restaurants to go to, new breweries, all that kind of stuff. new ballpark names, which are
New
happening
ballpark
every day.
names.
Yeah.
Right here, we're actually both in Houston.
Yeah.
But we're in different rooms. But yeah, I mean, the fact that, there's a new ballpark name in Houston, there's a lot of news that happens all the time. And we'll get into that on the podcast. I mean, the quick primer, because I'll give you more about my fandom a little bit later, but I've been going to ball games my entire life, mostly in Philadelphia, but also up and down the East Coast because I lived in the East Coast most of my life. And a couple times I've taken trips to different cities. And in 2011, I made a really big trip where I went to, I think, like 11 games in 2 weeks, going all across the country.
My God.
And back.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a crazy trip. I don't know why I did it when I did it, but I did it. It was great.
You were young and you could.
I was young and maybe stupid.
No one said no. Oh, well, yeah.
It worked out. I only got one traffic ticket the entire time.
That's impressive. That's impressive.
I've been going to ball games my entire life, and sometime around 2011, when I made that trip, I was like, you know what? I think I got to go to all of them. I think it's going to have to happen because I've already been to now more than half. It's going to happen now. And so throughout the 2010s and into the 2020s, I've been going to all the ballparks. And sometime around, was it 2017, 2016? I have written all kinds of things in my life. I'm a writer, I'm an editor, I'm an author. Like, I've done all these different things. I've written for all kinds of outlets. And I was freelance for a couple of years, and I was looking at opportunities for making money. And I saw a posting for this book that was this publisher wanted to get done about road tripping to different ballparks in America, going to all the ballparks and doing essentially a travel guide for all the ballparks, major league and some minor league. And I was like, I love baseball. I love traveling. I love writing about all these things. I write about all these things already. I have everything that's necessary to make this book happen. I should go for this. And so I applied for it. I went through the process. I had to submit a proposal, interview process, the whole thing. And they gave me the opportunity and I got the book deal. And that was the first book, Baseball Road Trips, which came out in 2018. Is that right? Mm-hmm. No, 2000. No, that's not right. 21 it came out. Sorry.
We both have the book behind us. We could even look that up there just if you want to cheat.
Yeah. Yours. Yeah, the first edition is behind you. You know what? They started talking to me, I think, in 2017, 2018. And then the pandemic happened, so that delayed a couple things. But 2021 was when the first edition came out. And of course, because it's a travel guide and my publisher, Hachette Book Group, and it's the Moon Publishing Guides, they have this structure where every 3 years they want to do a new version of it, a second version, a third version, etc. Because things always update. Things are always changing. There's always things that are new. So we did the second edition, and the second edition, which is behind me on my wall, but also it's right here. This is it.
Yay.
Ooh, there it is. With the Camden Yards on the cover. That came out in September of last year. So it's fairly new, fairly fresh. And I have a lot of copies of them. And if you listen to this podcast, I might just send you a copy of this book. We'll talk about that kind of stuff as well into the future. But that was my story about how this all came together. And in the last several months, it's like, I should do more with this knowledge that I have, with this opportunity that I've been given, the experience that I have. And I decided, let's just do a podcast. Let's just make it happen. And so I just started putting this together, and I talked to Alex, and Alex, who I know is trying to go to all the ballparks and is a huge baseball fan and just loves talking about this stuff. I brought her in to be my 1B to my 1A, or my 1A to my 1B, or what have you. And here we are. We got the
here
podcast.
We are.
So that's Take Me Out. So Take Me Out is weekly. It's going to come out on Wednesdays. It's going to be on every podcast feed that you can find. Anywhere you can find podcasts, Take Me Out will be there. And it's going to be a whole rainbow of content. We're going to do ballpark news, things that are happening right now in the ballpark world, whether it's renovations, openings, closings, what's going on in different, government, city governments and state governments, with different deals and different loans and all these kinds of things. And then maybe, lighter news and things like that. We're also going to field your questions, and we'll have answers for you. We will give you tips. We will give you tricks. We will do episodes that are essentially guides to different cities, to different ballparks, guides to different ways to do road trips. We're going to do an episode that is all about just what trips you should do in 2025. And then we'll also hopefully bring in some folks who we can talk to about their ballparks and things that they love about their ballparks, new things happening at new ballparks and old ballparks. We'll also probably tell some stories. We will have a lot of fun. We will talk about the current Major League product, probably. We'll talk about the season, but probably not a ton. There are a lot of podcasts to talk about what's happening right now in baseball. We will talk about ballparks and going to the game and the experience of going to the ballpark. It's going to be a lot. I'm really excited.
I am too.
I don't think there's a podcast like this out there. Have you looked ever?
Honestly, no, I haven't. But pretty cool to be the first.
Yeah. And the best,
exactly.
Regardless of we're the first.
Got to set the bar high.
To do it the best is really what we're trying to do. So we would love for you to join us in this adventure. We're going to have social media pages, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But just to put it out there, if you look up Take Me Out on Facebook, I should have written this down, and I'm as prepared as I possibly could be, but not completely. But there's a Take Me Out Facebook page, which I will figure out when we get there. And there'll be a Take Me Out, probably an Instagram, I would imagine, in some form or fashion. It hasn't launched yet, but we'll do that. But then we'll also have a website. We'll also have a Patreon, which we'll talk about later, because we want to do a lot more than just the regular podcast. We're going to have a lot of fun stuff as well coming your way. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We hope to build something really special, and we hope to have you join us for the ride. We should take a quick break. We'll have a quick 30-second break, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about what this podcast is and how we're going to go forward.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to Take Me Out, the ultimate podcast about ballparks and the baseball experience. I am Timothy, Tim, Malcolm, call me Tim, whatever. I will try to stop doing that, but you can call me Tim. See. All right, so like I said, we're going to do a weekly podcast. Wednesdays, you'll find it in your podcast feeds, wherever you find podcasts. So make sure you subscribe, whether it's on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or what have you. Subscribe to Take Me Out. We also have a YouTube that I forgot to mention before, but it's going to be, I think if you search Take Me Out on YouTube, you can find it there. And we'll have a video. We'll have weekly podcast video as well. So you can watch us, instead of listening to us on the podcast feed, you can watch us on YouTube. So that'll be there as well. We'll be everywhere. I hope that I can get us on every possible platform so that it makes it so easy for you to find us, because that's the goal. We want to be sure to meet you where you are, whether it's podcast or YouTube or what have you. So that's the goal there. But we have a slate. We have a full slate already ready to go for this podcast. I have a schedule that you've seen, Alex, that has 7 episodes already written down. It feels daunting, and I'm sorry about it.
It's okay. It's I kind of like being kept busy, and I like kind of doing a little bit of research, and I like knowing what's going to happen. I don't spontaneity is fun, but it's not that fun sometimes.
I haven't done a ton of research on a lot of these things. I mean, I've done research in the past, but I need to do more research and new research. So That'll be fine. We'll be fine with it. It'll be great. I can't wait.
We're getting to it. It's going to be awesome.
The next several episodes, so just so you know, this week, like I said, is an FAQ episode. It's basically who we are, what we're all about, and then your questions about ballparks and road trips and things like that. And I will do my best to answer, and we'll have a lot of fun talking about those things. Next week on the podcast, which will be February 12th, we're going to do a rough guide to Grapefruit League spring training baseball. So for those of you who are going to Florida this spring to see your favorite team, whether it's in Western Florida or Eastern Florida, we're going to give you a rough guide of where to go, what to do, what to eat, what to drink, where to stay, and a little bit about the ballparks as well. It's basically going to be a 30 to 40 minute, here's what you need to know kind of a thing. It's not going to be a full-on, huge platter of information. It's not going to be so in-depth that it's too much, because that'll be a larger kind of a guide thing, and there's more time that we'd have to take for that kind of thing. The rough guide is more of a smaller bite, where if you were going to Florida and you're on the plane flying down there and you want to listen to a podcast that kind of gives you some tips on what to do when you're there, that'll be what you want. You're going to want that 1 hour of us talking about Florida. It's going to be great. That'll be next week on February 12th, the rough guide to Florida spring training, the Grapefruit League there. The next week, February 19th, will be a rough guide to Cactus League spring training baseball. So it's Arizona, more specifically the Phoenix metropolitan area, because that's where it all is. So that'll be a lot of fun to do, and that'll be February 19th. February 26th on the podcast, we're going to peel back from spring training, and we're going to look ahead at the 2025 regular season. This is an exercise that I love doing every year, and we're going to do it on the podcast, where we go through the Major League schedule, and we try to plot some of the best road trips that you can take this year. If you haven't yet booked your trips for 2025, there is still time. There's absolutely still time. You can always book a trip like a week or two out. Even if, the flights are a little bit more expensive, you can figure it out. We're going to give you a couple trips that we think could be really great for you to take in 2025. And they're not the usual trips, hopefully. There'll be some different ones that maybe you didn't even think of. So that'll be in 3 weeks on February 26th. Then on, March 5th, I believe is the week after that, we're going to get into what's going on this year in the new ballparks, because this year is a crazy year, Alex. We have 2 new ballparks in Major League Baseball this year. We didn't know they were happening.
Is there any other season where they've had this many ballparks? Like, one of them was like off the cuff because they had to. The other one was more planned,
Yeah, I think the last time we had 2 ballparks opening in a season was probably like 2009 or 8. Like, I feel like the year Citi Field opened, there was another ballpark that opened at the same time. I could be wrong. It was like Citi Field and Target Field maybe opened the same year or something like that. I do remember that in 2004, Citizens Bank Park and Petco Park opened at the same time. They were like a week apart, their first games.
Man, that's 2 really good parks.
Two very. Well, yeah. I'm sure at some point, I'm sure like if you already haven't like asked yourself, like, when are they going to rank the ballparks? Well, we'll do that. We'll do that at some point. We're not doing that right away.
No, we got to give away the goods at the beginning.
Yeah, that's the meat. That's the meat and potatoes. We're going to do that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this year we have 2 new ballparks in baseball. We have Sutter Health Ballpark in Sacramento, California, which is where the Athletics will be playing for, I think, the next 3 seasons. I think it was supposed to be 2. Maybe it's 3 now. It's 2 or 3. So we're going to talk about that park on March 5th. That'll be a guide to Sutter Health Ballpark. So I'm hoping to get someone from the Athletics to talk to me about the ballpark. We will see what happens there. Regardless, I will make sure I have all the info I need to give you about what to do at Sutter Health Ballpark this year in Sacramento. The week after that, which is March 12th, we will do a guide to Sacramento. So we did Sutter Health Park. We're going to zoom out more and do a rough guide to Sacramento. Another like 30 minutes or so on the city itself. Where to go, what to do, what to eat, what to drink, what special things you should check out if there's any other baseball things in the city. Here's your guide to Sacramento, because I'm sure a lot of you loyalists and a lot of you people who want to make sure you check off every ballpark imaginable want to make sure to hit Sacramento in the next couple of years. So we'll give you that rough guide to Sacramento on March 12th. And then on March 9th, we're going to give you Steinbrenner Field in Tampa. I believe that's March 19th. Maybe it's March 12th. Maybe I got the dates mixed up. But nevertheless, several weeks from now, mid-March, Steinbrenner Field, which is where the Tampa Bay Rays will be playing their home games this season. Obviously, we know Tropicana Field is out of business this year because of the hurricane last year, which is terrible, and it sucks for the Rays and their fans. But Steinbrenner Field is going to offer some new opportunities, and we're going to talk about that and what the Rays will be doing with that park at that point. I think it's, again, March 19th. It could be the 12th. I need to go back and look at the dates, but that'll be...
Stay tuned to find out.
Several weeks down the line. We're talking like 6 weeks out. So, at that point, who knows what the dates are. And then that'll take us basically right into the regular season, because the Tokyo games open up right after that. And so we're just in it. We are in it. I would love to do an episode on Tokyo at some point. But that means I have to go to Tokyo. So
Korean baseball games, it's an experience.
Was it Korea this year? Is it Korea this year?
Is it Korea? I don't know. I know that they both, baseball is absolutely massive over there. And I admire them for how much they love it over there. It's so cool to see. Is it Korea or is it Japan? I'm so sorry.
I think it's Tokyo. I think it's Tokyo.
Okay.
Now I'm looking. So this is the live stuff that we have to do here.
You're seeing it live, folks.
MLB World Tour, Tokyo series.
Tokyo, all right, ignore me.
The Cubs and Dodgers are going to start their season out there, and I think they're also both playing some Japanese teams out there.
It's so cool.
So that'll be a lot. It's really, and it makes sense. Obviously, like Shohei and like all these great players. The Dodgers are just going to run all over everybody this year.
Embarrassment of wealth. It's just
not if my Phillies can help it though. So that is what we have coming up over the several weeks of this podcast, and then we're in the season, and we're just going to keep rolling from there. And we're going to do more rough guides and more tips and more news stuff, and it's going to be a lot of fun going forward here on Take Me Out.
Thrilled! I can't wait to get into it. And I want to get into some news right now. Actually, want to do that?
Let's get into the news.
Let's get into some news
for the week. Here we go.
Yeah. All right, we are starting with Washington Nationals. The Nationals have unveiled plans to renovate Nationals Park and turn it into an entertainment hub. We've been seeing that a lot around the league, actually. Daniel J. Cernovitz, I apologize if I butchered that name, of the Washington Business Journal, reports that the Nationals plan to turn the area around Nationals Park into a larger commercial district. Parking garages are going to get retail storefronts, security gates into the ballpark will be pushed back to allow for more shopping space. Other reports proposed renovations also include turning the center field entrance into a plaza with a concert stage and room for shopping and dining. The proposed upgrades would not be put into motion until the Nationals and the City of Washington strike a new lease agreement that would keep the team in the park throughout the year.
Yeah, so the Nationals, this is the thing that's happening in every ballpark. Not every ballpark, but most of the ballparks in baseball. And it's really kind of not just the future of ballparks, but it's the present of ballparks. The big trend is teams are trying to add entertainment districts to their ballpark experiences. So you have the ballpark, and then around the ballpark, or even part of the ballpark, or across the street from the ballpark, you have shopping, you have food and dining, you have bars and drinking, you have maybe some kid-friendly, family-friendly stuff as well, activations, lawn games, stage areas where there can be concerts, where you can have old ball players come and sign autographs. Basically, this all-in-one commercial district that exists around the ballpark that is open year-round, so you can always go and check it out and buy merchandise for the team, and the team store's there and all of that. Go and eat and drink and watch other sporting events there. But then during the season, when the team is there and playing live, you can go to the entertainment district an hour, 2 hours before the game and have a beer or two, have some food, do all of that, and then you go into the ballpark. Or maybe after the game, you go back to the entertainment district and you party there. This is everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Cardinals Nation in St. Louis was one of the, if not the first place that kind of sprouted up out of this.
Yeah.
The name to know is the Cordish companies. So Cordish is this large entertainment company that gives you the live series of event venues. So if you're in Baltimore and you see Baltimore Live near the harbor, if you're in Philadelphia and see Xfinity Live next to the stadiums, if you're in Arlington and see Texas Live next to Globe Life Field,
they're just extensions of the ballpark.
That's what they are. Much, so yeah. Like, it's basically like this city themed in a sense, team themed in a sense, large bar venue, food venue. There's like 6 or 7 different food and drink, storefronts in that venue, and they all have seating, and you can have different kinds of experiences, whether it's PBR or bull riding experience, and there's an actual mechanical bull, which is, more of a late night thing. There's a craft beer bar experience where you can have like more sort of exotic beers, which exotic, for them, which is not maybe the most craft, but still craft. You're going to have, it depends. There's going to be a lot of macros in a lot of those places too. There's also like the large format bar that has the big screen TVs and tons of tables and waitresses and waiters running around, servers running around. And that is really where you're going to have the hub of activity, especially for sporting events, live sporting events on TV. So there's all these different activations and venues and things that are part of that. And so that's really sprouted up. And then what has happened since then in the year since is teams have decided to start doing their own entertainment districts or partnering with development companies to make that districts that are more team-centric and kind of even go further with the city experience. So for instance, Atlanta, if you're going to Truist Park, you're going to a place that is not just like where the Braves play. It is outside of Atlanta in Cumberland, which is an unincorporated part of the city area. And it is a place called The Battery. The Battery is its own existing commercial district where you drive in, you have to park, it's like $20, or you can take one bus to get there. And we'll talk about that at some point in the future in this podcast and how tough it is to get to Atlanta's ballpark. But the Battery is an all-in-one food and drink and shopping destination. You can walk around after you park your car and go bar hopping, go restaurant hopping, go shopping. There's like distilleries on site. There's like all these things to do on site. And there's a lot of Braves merch and team store stuff. And there's a lot of good restaurants, like one of the better restaurants in Atlanta that I think was even nominated for a James Beard, at least a designation, Superica, which there's a Superica in Houston.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not James Beard, a Michelin. They got nominated for, I believe, a Michelin.
They're both pretty good.
Designation, yeah. So Siparica, pretty good Tex-Mex restaurant from Ford Fry, who's an Atlanta native, or who lives in Atlanta now, excuse me. He's a Southeast Texas native, I believe. Superica's great, but like that's in the Battery. So it's an all-in-one thing, and you spend hours at the Battery either before or after the game. So that's the idea, and the Nationals are finally getting in on this. The problem is that, have you been to Nationals Park, Alex?
I have. I don't remember. I want to say 2015-ish.
Okay, so a little bit. So I haven't been there in a little bit either. Nationals Park is surrounded by large avenues, right? The Navy Yard area, which is nearby, is good, and they've developed that over the years, and there's bars, restaurants. There's a really good bar scene just north of the ballpark, but there's a lot of busy avenues around there. So their plans call for pushing back some entrances, finding room for a plaza, turning parking garages into storefronts, and creating things out of existing things that are there already, which I think is smart for the Nationals, because you really can't build out around. It's basically all real estate that's already taken. So they have to find new ways to do it. I would love to see like sky bridges or something to make it a little bit easier for people to get around over there, because that is a very busy trafficked area. But the Nationals are buying into this new presence of baseball, which is all about entertainment districts. And you got to do it, especially if you're trying to attract families to the ballpark. Like the Navy Yard is very adult themed. A lot of bars. It's a fun place, but it's a lot of bars and restaurants and things like that. If you want to bring your family for a couple hours and spend more than just the game there in the area, you have to have an area that's indoor, outdoor, that has music, that has shopping, but also has cornhole games, and that has, little kid games. Like in Target Field, they have mini golf, putt-putt. Like, you need to do more of those things. Kauffman Stadium has maybe the best. Have you been to Kauffman Stadium lately?
I have.
Did you go to the outfield where they have like the mini golf, and they have
there's
the
a little
playground.
carnival thing that
it's amazing. It's really fun.
Not a Ferris wheel, like a merry-go-round kind of a thing.
Merry-go-round,
This is wild. That's pretty cool over there. I really love.
Yeah, so Nationals Park, they're finally, getting into that, and hopefully that's what they add, is a lot more family-friendly stuff, because that really is. That's the ticket forward is, you want people to spend money on food and drinks and shopping. But if you get families to come out, you'll get those people who are in their 20s, and then when they're in their 30s and 40s and they have kids and they're bringing them to the ballpark, they're actually going to want to go to the game, and they're going to want to spend the money. So good on the Nationals. They're going to stay at Nationals Park for a little while. They're trying to get a new lease agreement that I think that would end in 2054.
Yeah.
So they're trying to stay there for the next 30 years, which great, but you got to build it up now. This is the time to do it, because Nationals Park is sort of on the middle to bottom tier of ballparks, in my opinion. So building an entertainment district around it will help its longevity for sure.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see what that's about. All right, up next, we're going to Kansas City. Kansas City Royals executive says that new ballpark updates are still months away. According to Todd Palmer, Kansas City, the Royals chairman and CEO John Sherman said that the franchise's annual Royals rally, that they will have real updates on a new ballpark at the end of June or July. The Royals plan on moving out of Kauffman Stadium once the lease is up there after the 2030 season. They have not yet found a site yet, but options include Washington Square Park near downtown Kansas City, in the area in North Kansas City, and Overland Park, Kansas. There was a proposal in place for the Crossroads neighborhood of Kansas City, but that was scuttled last year.
So when did you go to Kauffman last?
29.
Okay, so not too long ago.
Yeah, not too long ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually there last year. I went. I did a Kansas City St. Louis trip, and it's a really good park. I like Kauffman.
Yeah, it's great.
It's an old park, mid-century park from when did they open that? 1970, 1968, something like that, somewhere in that range. I should know off the top of my head, but I don't. But they opened it as a mid-century park, sort of patterned after Dodger Stadium and Angel Stadium in Anaheim, and that sort of idea, that sort of vibe. And they've done a nice job of keeping it sort of modern, keeping it updated, and still making it vital and fresh. And I went last year and enjoyed myself thoroughly. The big problem with Kauffman Stadium, and I think this is probably one of the big problems that people have with it, there's two things. One, it's in the middle of a parking lot area that is outside of downtown Kansas City. And while it is accessible by car, and it's not that bad, it is in a place that is, there's no development around it, right? It's It's just Kauffman and obviously Gayhoff Field at Arrowhead Stadium, which is where the Chiefs play football, is right next door across the way in the parking lots. So you have this great parking lot energy. And there's tailgating, especially for the Chiefs, but definitely for the Royals too. It is the closest thing, maybe the closest thing in baseball that you actually have, or in sports that you have, to the Philadelphia experience of all the stadiums in one large area that's surrounded by parking lots. So like tailgating is insane. It's very much like that, but it's removed from everything else. And so that's one. The other thing, and I experienced this when I went to Kauffman Stadium, because I went, I believe, in August or July of last year. It's really bad in the summer. It is hot. It is sunny. It was 105 degrees when I went. I saw the Phillies are playing there, and it was I think a Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon game when I went, and it was 105 degrees. It was unbearable.
I can't imagine what the temperature was in the field, because they do. Just
seriously.
awful.
I mean, imagine if they had AstroTurf still there. Because AstroTurf would have made it like 140 degrees on the field.
That your shoes are melting into the turf. Oh my god, yeah, it's awful.
It's dangerous. I mean, I remember having to duck inside numerous times just for like cool air and maybe some water and that kind of thing. So like, yeah, you need to have a ballpark, especially. I mean, almost every ballpark these days kind of needs a little bit of that like cooler air sort of factor.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're up north, if you're up in, like, I would say the East Coast parks are fine because East Coast parks, like, they can handle the cold. You know, there's like a certain like window where it's like fine if you're open air, but if you're down south where there's warm weather, and even if you're in the heartland where it's open and it's so warm and the sun's just brutal, it gets bad. So I can understand why a new stadium would want to come and probably make it retractable. I wish, but I mean, they've done such a good job of Kauffman, and it's a charming ballpark that I kind of wish that they didn't move it. But I also understand why it's kind of necessary.
It's a health thing too. I mean, you got people safe. You know, people have heat stroke. It's getting hot.
Do you feel one way or another about it? Would you like to see a new ballpark in case?
You know, I wouldn't mind it. I mean, especially with the location, how it is, you know, a little bit further outside of the city and everything. When they do build a new park, I'd like to hope they would keep the fountains, because I really like the fountains they have there in the outfield. Gorgeous.
Iconic.
Yeah, I really enjoyed my trip to Kansas City. It's a really cool feel to the stadium as well. It's just it almost, I don't want to say the term otherworldly, but it's got its own like retro feel to it, and I really like that. And they've kept it up, feeling that kind of a little old school, but still kind of moving up to the future. But I really like Kansas City. I'd love to see what they're going to come up with.
It's a fun ballpark. I just hope that when they do have a new ballpark, that they put it in a place where there is activity and it feels like a ballpark and it's not necessarily part of a gentrified sort of movement. We'll talk more as we go forward in the podcast, but I'm not a huge fan of the whole battery stuff and the gentrification stuff. I like to see things kind of grow naturally. Like, I love Wrigley Field because of where it's located. I love where Fenway Park's located. I mean, that's all like old school, you know, that's old, you know, city development from the early 20th century, right? That's made those ballparks what they are. But I kind of really love that. So I don't know if that's going to happen here with Kansas City, but they were trying to move it to Crossroads, which is a great neighborhood. You know, they're gentrifying that, obviously, but it has a lot of history there, and that's a great neighborhood for that. But we'll see what happens. It'll be something to keep track of course, as we go forward. Third item,
Rob Manfred visits Athletics' new Sacramento Park. Last week, Susan Slusser and John Shea of San Francisco Chronicle reported that MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred visited Sutter Health Ballpark in Sacramento to meet with the Athletic owner, John Fisher, and to get an update on work being done to renovate the ballpark. The park is being renovated to better suit Major League Baseball. It's also the home of the San Francisco Giants AAA team, the River Cats. It will seat around 14,000 with 250 additional lawn seats that will become available on the day of each game. Tickets for the home opener are sold out.
I mean, good for them. Good for Sacramento. Good for the team to sell out. I mean, it's a 15,000 capacity ballpark, so it's... I mean,
look at other... I don't want to say anything about Oakland fans' attendance. They killed it last season with their last few games. They killed it.
Well, it's opening day, though. Like I mean, people like, you're going to have Sacramento people who are very excited. You're going to have A's fans who are going to be excited to just watch. There are a lot of A's fans who just want to see the A's, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you'll have probably people like us who are like, I want to get to Sacramento and get to that first game there and like, watch history and that kind of thing. So it's great that they have that. It's cool that they are trying to make the ballpark a little bit more of a major league park because it sounds like they're going to be there for a couple of years at least. Yeah, I mean, I have no qualms with Sacramento. I have no qualms with the ballpark. And I'm glad that the Giants are being thoughtful and letting the Athletics take the park for half the year, basically, while their AAA team, I think the AAA team is actually starting the season in Tacoma, Washington, just because they're still going to have to finish renovations in April or so, or, before they have to start the season there in AAA. So they're going to make a couple of concessions, but nevertheless, good for all them. This is my official stance. Maybe it's the official stance of take me out, but I am very sad and upset and about the whole situation with Oakland, and those fans deserve a whole lot better. And I am sorry to all those Oakland A's fans who either are like, screw baseball or screw the A's, or I still want to be an A's fan. I'll have to just grit through it and root for them when they're in Vegas. I mean, it just sucks. It just sucks. Oakland's an awesome city, and I love it, and I feel bad for those fans.
I echo all of that. It sucks having like baseball just ripped out of their hands.
Can you imagine if the Astros were ripped out of, like back in the 90s, there was like thoughts that like they were trying to move the team for like a hot second before the new ballpark deal.
I don't remember that. How do I not remember that?
This was like 94 or something like that. Like,
okay. I was still in middle school. I don't think I had any idea what I was doing.
They obviously wanted out of the Astrodome because it wasn't being repaired and that kind of thing. There was
still not
whispers. Well, the Astrodome's a whole thing. But there were whispers of the owner wanting to move the Astros. Drayton McClain, I believe, was the owner then. Move the Astros out of Houston. I forget. I think it was Virginia. Was it like Virginia Beach or Roanoke or something like that? Not Roanoke, but like larger, like that part of Virginia. It's like Virginia Beach and those cities that are like pretty well populated out there, I think is where they were trying to like dangle the carrot. And it didn't happen. But that kind of spurred the Astros to go, okay, we need to have a new ballpark. And Minute Maid, now Daikin or Dakin, whatever we want to call it, we'll figure that out. But the new ballpark is then built. The Icebox. I love the Icebox. I think the Icebox is tremendous.
Got to get a little more, maybe some Daikin air conditioning in there. That'd be nice. It gets pretty warm up there.
At Minute Maid, the train was filled with Minute Maid oranges, like plastic fake oranges, and it would do the choo-choo, and every time an Astros hit a home run or one.
Bobby Dynamite.
Bobby Dynamite. Love Bobby. We'll get him on the podcast at some point. He's cool.
Would love that.
I hope that in the Icebox era, the train is now the Coors Light Silver Bullet train. You know what I'm talking about? with the love train in the background. It's just people all over the world. It's just like...
I think I've seen another one on some Instagram account saying they're going to put cans of Freon instead of the oranges.
It's just like it's like Sub-Zero, like shoots out like icy like lasers at people, like just kills people, whatever. Yeah. Anyways,
get a little Arnold Schwarzenegger on there as Mr. Freeze. You need to chill every time you get a home run. Let's go. That'd be great.
With that, what's our next news item?
All right, our next segment is I just lost my spot. Where'd it go? All right. Tampa Bay Rays ownership uncertain about future ballpark plans. This is so heartbreaking. Field-level media reports that Tampa Bay Rays principal owner Stuart Sternberg said he and the ownership team still has not decided on whether they will pursue a new ballpark in St. Petersburg Historic Gas Plant District. They have until March 31st to show that they can meet a $700 million obligation to move forward with the new ballpark. But construction has been delayed, and the longer the Rays wait, the more they may be responsible for additional costs. Sternberg said he will decide well before March 31st. Meanwhile, Pinellas County Commissioner Chris Latvala wrote on X, sell the team.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so heartbreaking.
Look, we're trying to get someone from the Rays on this podcast, so I'm not going to trash the Rays or anything like that. And I'm not trying to trash the Rays here, but
no, I love the Rays. They've actually have held such a special place in my heart, especially since in 2017 when the Astros couldn't play Minute Maid because of Harvey, and they were like, "Hey, come play here."
Yeah,
and like they welcomed the Astros with open arms. Astros didn't win those games, but it was still just an incredible gesture, and I've held Tropicana and Tampa fans in my heart because of that. Because also Tropicana reminded me a little bit of Astrodome a little bit, but I love Tampa fans. They're great.
I have a few friends, family members actually in Tampa and St. Pete. I mean, I like the area. I've been there a couple times, obviously, and the fans do deserve something there. Tropicana Field, weirdly, like I kind of like parts of Tropicana Field in a way that I think some people don't. I will talk about that at some point in the future, but Tropicana is kind of an interestingly cool ballpark to me in some ways. But they obviously direly need a new ballpark. They direly need to have a new sort of look so that they can attract more fans. It's hard to attract fans in a region where there are fans of other teams all over the place because of just the diet-in spring training grapefruit league thing. But it's possible. It is possible that that region does not have the ability to support its own major league team. We are now 3 decades into the Tampa Bay Rays experience. They've never been able to draw for more than 2 years at a time consecutively, probably. I don't have the attendance figures in front of me. I should look at them, and maybe I'll be proven wrong. But even when they were like really good, 2008 when they made the World Series, and 2020 when they made the World Series, and then obviously that was a weird season. That's kind of an outlier.
Yeah.
But 2008 and the years after that when they were contenders through and through, like there were fans in the ballpark. But I don't even know if they had that upper deck open all the time during those years. That upper deck has been closed essentially for years. I mean, they don't open that much. They need a new ballpark, and without one, I could see them moving, and I don't think people would be too concerned about it. It's again, I don't want to trash anybody, but it's just a very unfortunate circumstance. I would love to see them get a new ballpark. St. Pete is a cool city.
Yeah, it's a great city.
If they put a really cool retractable ballpark in the heart of St. Pete in that district, I don't know if that's going to happen now, but that would really help fuel things down there. Obviously, the issue is people coming from Tampa, people coming from even Clearwater, people coming from other parts of Western Florida. It takes a while. It's like 45 minutes to an hour, depending on where you live, even to get from like Tampa to St. Pete. So it's hard for people to get there in the region. And so you have to really sell the team to people. Like, this is the team. This is your team. And a lot of people in Tampa, St. Pete just, again, have their Grapefruit League standbys. And they're Yankee fans. They're Philly fans. They're Blue Jays fans. They're whatever. So I get it. It's just a hard sell to sell that team to fans. And so if they can't get this deal done and the Rays are being, careful about their money, I guess, if you want to call it that, I mean, then why are we doing this? Then why are we doing this? And why don't we just, move the team to a city that really wants baseball, like a Nashville, if they really, I don't know if Nashville really wants baseball. We got to talk about that at some point in the future. Montreal wants baseball. I would love to see baseball back in Montreal, so.
They've been talking about moving a baseball team to San Antonio. I mean, there's talks about that too.
Do you think San Antonio would work as a baseball city?
I can see them working. I would love it because I love San Antonio so much. I would love to almost see them as like independently, kind of like what the Sugarland Skeeters were before they were signed by joined the Astros. I mean, just the independent league. I mean, that'd be a good way to test the waters. But I mean, having 3 teams in Texas, that'd be really cool. Having that fun little road trip right there.
No, it would be cool to have 3 teams in Texas. I do wonder, though, the viability of a baseball team that attracts like a consistent audience in San Antonio. San Antonio's a great city. I like it too.
It's just, I mean, they worship the Spurs there.
They worship the Spurs, but will they worship a second team and will they worship baseball? I don't know. That's my I don't know that answer, so I don't know. I don't think Austin would. I think Austin makes a lot of sense as a soccer city. They have a good following there with Austin FC, but I don't know if Austin can support baseball because it's not necessarily. People don't live in people like Austin. Long-timers don't live in Austin much anymore. It's a transient city. It's a very people have moved into that city, and soccer is like a cool thing to support even if you're like new to the city. Baseball, it's like a lifetime thing, and you really it's a harder sell.
It's like a dig your heels into, yeah.
So yeah. But we'll keep up on the Tampa thing. We'll keep up on the Rays. I'm sure every week there'll be different Rays news to cover. And again, Steinbrenner Field, we're hoping to get to that in the next several weeks. And if you're listening and you're with the Rays, I would love to have you on because it'd be really cool to talk about Steinbrenner Field and what's going to happen this year with that city. All right. We'll come back in a second. We'll get rolling with a little bit about ourselves and a little bit about baseball in 2025 and road trips and fun and all that stuff. So stay tuned. Welcome back to Take Me Out, the ultimate podcast about ballparks and the baseball experience. I am Tim Malcolm. See, I did it right this time. Yes. And that's Alex Ellis. Alex, hi.
Hi.
Tell people who you are as a baseball fan and just give give I guess the 3 to 5 minute pitch about who you are as a baseball fan and how that came to be.
All right, it's gonna be very disorganized, I promise. Since
I don't
Lincoln's not my
mind.
brain. I was raised Astros fan, obviously here from Houston. Our family shared season tickets at the Astrodome of the Astros with these other families like on our street in Goldsmith and West University, and so we would like share these season tickets, and just so many memories of going to the Astrodome. I can't remember this section off the top of my head. I want to say it was 123 row 13. I think that's where our seats were. I might be I know there was a 3 in there somewhere and there was a 1, and I kind of wish I'd looked it up on the old seating chart, but yeah, we would go to all the games, and I would always bring my glove with me, even though we were under the shaded part of the roof at Minute Maid, not Minute Maid, Astrodome, still at Minute Maid, even though it's not called that anymore. We like under the shaded part, like over the west, so we were behind home plate, between home plate and third base. And I remember each time, Bizio and Bagwell just yelling, "Take it downtown!" And we would also go to Ninfas and Navigation. That would be our big thing as well before. But
Nice.
I just being raised by my dad, and my brother and I would all go to these games. My stepmom would come with us as well. I think my strongest memory was, I think it was one of Darryl Kyle's first home runs that he actually hit as a pitcher. And
he was a good hitter too for a pitcher.
He was, man.
Yeah.
He could tank some of those. But we would, I remember in the parking lot, because I remember the Astrodome had that circular parking lot that would like, surround the ballpark, stuck in traffic trying to leave the game, and they were interviewing him on the post-game radio, and they said, "What did it feel like running the bases?" And he said, "Confused." And I will never forget that. And it's just like, oh, that's cool. But yeah, I've always stuck with the Astros. I've loved them. I lived in Dallas for a few years, and so I went to a bunch of Rangers games, rooted for them for a little bit, even though this is when the Astros are still in the National League. So I've had people call me out for being fans of both teams. And I was like, look, there's a league difference. I'm allowed to do that. But come at me. But I've just been a massive baseball fan my entire life. I mean, it's what I was raised on, because this is around the time where Houston didn't have a football team. This is after the Oilers left. And this is kind of everything that Houston leaned on was the Astros and the Rockets, of course. But just the strongest memories are at Astrodome.
And what made you want to go to different ballparks?
It was something, it kind of happened organically. Like I had been to about 5 before I realized what I was doing. And I was like, okay. And so my thing is, whenever I go to the ballparks, I get a hat. I have a few of them here. You can see, I'm going to switch them out each week. I've got a few missing because I still haven't been to those ballparks, but I kind of did a little cheat thing, because once I realized what I was doing, when I started buying the hats, and I was like, oh, I didn't get a hat when I went to Dodger Stadium. Oh, I didn't get a hat when I went to Camden. And so I bought them online, but it's just like, still signifies that I've been to these ballparks. I think it really started picking up in 2018 when I really was like, okay, I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to start planning, and I had a while back, I think it got lost in a move somewhere, one of those like scratch off maps where you could just scratch off each ballpark and everything, and which became outdated really quickly with how everything's in flux. But I don't know where that is. But I've just love visiting these ballparks. I really do, and making friends, because I don't go with people all the time. I like going by myself sometimes too. It's like because I can make friends pretty easily, I like to think. And it's just talking. I mean, it's especially as an Astros fan, people kind of make fun of you. Oh, you're cheating. And I was like, yeah, so what? Well, let's talk about baseball. We're still having fun,
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's fun. It's at the end of the
day.
Exactly. It's funny. I have, maybe it's the same thing. I have the Major League Baseball Parks scratch off poster.
Okay.
It's on the wall over there, so you can't see it, but obviously they're all scratched off. But it's a little bit outdated now, because I think some of the names are different now. So like, It still says Miller Park and not American Family, right? Mm-hmm. So a couple of those. But yeah, so my story. So I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I am a sicko diehard Philadelphia sports fans. We're recording this right before the Eagles play the Super Bowl 59. Boy, it's going to be a long night for me.
The thing is, I went to Texas Tech, and I love Patrick Mahomes, but it's like, okay, come on.
Yeah, that's right. Come on.
Come on. You know what?
And you live in Houston, and Jalen Hurts is a Houston.
I know, exactly. Yeah. So it's like, I think I'm going to, I mean, I've got rooting interest, I guess, in both teams, but it's like, come on.
Yeah, come on. But it's not a football podcast, so we're not going to.
No, it's not.
So I've always been a massive baseball fan. My dad would take me to games. My family would take me to games from a very young age. I would keep score as early as, I think I was keeping score at age like 2. I was keeping score. Okay. So I've always been like a very intense, in it baseball fan. And the thing that I really got attracted to very early were ballparks. I went to Veterans Stadium as a kid, which I think some people will tell you, and I might agree, was the worst ballpark to ever be created in baseball history. One of them. It's not the worst, but it's down there. It was round and concrete, and it smelled like a bathroom everywhere, not just in the bathrooms, but everywhere. It was very hot in the summer. The AstroTurf was steaming hot. It was a poor ballpark. But I grew up there. I loved it. But I also was envious of other places. My dad had a T-shirt that said that it was a Fenway Park T-shirt. It said Fenway Park on it, and it had the backdrop of Fenway Park, a la like 1988 or something like that. Mm-hmm. So it was the old school traditional Fenway Park green monster with just the light towers and the Citgo sign well beyond left field. And that's basically it, right? None of the renovations or anything like that. And I used to look at that shirt and take it out of the laundry and draw Fenway Park based off of that shirt. And then I would start drawing the other parks if I saw them on TV. Then I got RBI Baseball like 94, which had a mode where you could just go into different ballparks and scroll around them. You didn't play the games. You just scrolled around the ballparks. And this is 94. So like most of the parks were very basic and there was nothing, but they all kind of had like one little thing about them that was unique. So like if you went to Kauffman Stadium, there were the fountains in center field. If you went to
someone
Baltimore,
asks if you're a gamer, you're like, kind of.
Yeah, that's my gaming is essentially baseball games and looking at ballparks. So I would draw ballparks, and I would draw made up ballparks, and like that was what I did like every day when I was a kid on the floor. I collected baseball cards, all that stuff. Big Phillies fan forever. 2008 was the greatest year of my life as a 24-year-old. It was incredible, and sometime around then is when I started to kind of like branch out into just like loving baseball entirely, and even didn't matter what team it was, I just watched baseball games. And I started going to different ball games in different places. I lived in New York for a couple of years, so I went to Yankee Stadium, the old one when I was a kid, the new one when it opened. I went to Shea Stadium in 2007 during a very heated Phillies-Mets series in September as the Mets were starting to collapse, and that was awesome. I went to – we'll talk about that. I went to Citi Field when that opened, obviously, and I lived in New York, so I went to those places. I went to Boston for school. I went to Boston University, and the greatest thing that happened to me in my life was going to Fenway Park for the first time. And I was like a little kid, and I got to see the Citgo sign. And funny enough, Boston University, the Citgo sign is on top of a building where Boston University kids get their textbooks every year. It's the bookstore. It's the school bookstore. And so every year I would have to go to the building where the Citgo sign was and buy my textbooks. And I'd go there a lot for whatever else, but it's on campus. It was my campus.
That's so cool, though. That's so surreal. Oh
so
my
God.
God.
It was like there's always been this really like close like personal thing with Fenway Park for me. But sometime around 2009, 2010 is when I started to go to games at different places, Washington and other places like that. And then I made my big trip in 11. And then fast forward to current day when I got the book deal and I got to finish going to the ballpark. So I went to all the ballparks in the last couple of years. And 2023 was when I finished going to all the ballparks by going to Los Angeles and hitting Angel Stadium. And then Dodger Stadium was my last ballpark. And I cried like a baby. And it became a doubleheader day because they had to move the game up because of a potential hurricane that didn't really happen in LA. I had to get out of there early. But there were two games that day, and so I went to a day game, and then the night game was the game for the next day that they moved up. So I like just went to a brewery between the games and had a great time, and then went back to the ball game. It was great. It was a great day.
That's wild. Oh man, it's a long day.
It's a long day, but that's what I love doing. And so like, yes, going to ball games and meeting people, seeing cities, eating and drinking, getting to know things, like that's what I love a lot about traveling. I do it a lot alone because my kids are still kind of young. And, you know, at some point I have two kids. They will be part of the experience too. But, you know, sitting through a ball game and having me walk around the ballpark and take notes and all that stuff it's not their bag yet. So we'll get there. But yeah, that's who we are. I think we should like get to the meat of this, which is we ask people on Facebook. So there's a great group. Are you part of Ballpark Chasers?
I am, yes.
So
I think, yeah, I am.
There's a Facebook group called Ballpark Chasers, which I think is based off of a website, correct? The Ballpark Chasers website?
That sounds right.
Okay. I could be wrong. But
Okay.
it's a group that is all about, it's for people who are trying to go to all the ballparks and they're chasing the ballparks. They're going every year. It's a great Facebook group, a lot of great people on there, always looking for tips and tricks and things like that. And I'll chime in once in a while and say, hey, here are my picks for X, Y, and Z. And I put the book on there and people have been really excited, et cetera, et cetera. So I asked people in Ballpark Chasers to ask us some questions about going to ball games and also just general questions about like the podcast and what we might be doing and things like that. So we're going to give you those questions. We will answer those questions, and that'll be what we'll do for the next several minutes. So do you want to jump in to ask some questions, Alex?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to start with Mike P.
Yeah, it's a tough one because,
Yeah.
I mean, if you go to one of those third-party sites, you're going to spend a lot more on the back end that is, you know, suddenly you're finding yourself paying almost sticker price. I will tell you that when I make my reservations, what I will typically do is I will get a hotel. Sometimes I will get a hotel in the city where I'm staying, where I'm going to the game. Like if I'm going to, for instance, like I went to Kansas City last year to Kauffman Stadium. I stayed in the Power and Light District area, like in downtown KC. I think more because I just wanted to stay in a downtown area for that trip, for that one city, just something different. But typically I will stay outskirts. I will stay in cities and towns nearby. I will not do like the Motel 6. I will not do like the cheap motel kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not blasting motel. Actually, there are some really good Motel 6s out there that have been really helpful over the time that I've been traveling. But I won't go to like the cheap hotel typically. I will try to find, if I'm in a more suburban place or a place that's off the highway, I'll try to find your Holiday Inn Express or your Hampton Inn. Or if I want to go to like a Red Roof or something like that, typically they're fine. Super 8s are even pretty good typically. I will do that most of the time. And those are cheaper than your city hotels because the city hotels are just going to be a lot more money, 20, 30, 40% more typically. That's my first tip is if you can make it so that you can stay at a hotel that is not in the city itself, but maybe off the highway 10 to 15 miles down the road. And if you're not going to drink that much, or if you're going to take Ubers and things like that, like that's a good way to go because you're going to probably save some money on that end. And you can do the Priceline or the Hotwire or the hotels.com thing, and you'll typically save some money doing that. If you want to stay in the downtown and do the downtown hotel thing, if you're going to try to stay at the Marriott or the Four Seasons or those kinds, like you're going to spend a lot of money, and you should know going in that you're going to want to spend a lot of money for those. But if you're downtown and you want to do the Hilton, the Hampton Inn is a little cheaper than that typically. The Holiday Inn is kind of on the same end of the Hampton. Like you're going to spend $100 a night somewhere, like on a decent day, 130. If you're doing the Marriott, it's going to be $250, right? So
Yeah.
if you're doing the city thing, you know, if you have the means and you just want to do the Marriott, do it, have fun. But if you're like, I want to save some money, but I want to stay in the city, do the Hilton, do the Hampton Inn, I should say, do the Holiday Inn, do the 130 a night. You're gonna have to bite that bullet and spend that anyways. And you can go through the hotel and probably spend about the same amount that you would spend if you're going through the Hotwire or things like that, because they will be about the same after the back end. But my tip is to try to stay outside of the city if you can. If you can. The other thing you can do, and I don't know if you've done this, is stay at a hostel. Are you a hostel person?
I did a hostel last time I did a hostel. Oh my gosh. It's been a while. I did it when I went to Ireland when I was still in college about 20 years ago. But I've done Airbnb. That's one of the things I would do. But of course, a lot of cities are cracking down on that and trying to get that stuff under control.
They do get pricey, Airbnb.
Yeah, they really do. At some point, it's like, screw it. I'm just going to stay in a hotel for the same price.
With the cleaning fees and the taxes and all of that, I actually find Airbnbs are usually more expensive than your standard like Hampton Inn kind of thing.
Yeah.
Hostels are a decent way to go if you are okay with staying in, you know, quarters that are not going to be they're not hotels, right? It's not, You're not going to get the whole room kind of experience that a hotel will give you. It'll be a little bit more dressed down. It'll be a little bit more ramshackle, but a lot of hostels are honestly like very well done and clean and almost like Airbnb hotel quality, quite honestly. Some of the hostels these days are more expensive. Like there will be like I did hostels when I was doing, I have another book that is on the Appalachian Trail. And when I was doing the Appalachian Trail stuff, the hostels were like $20 a night, and you're staying in a bunk bed, and you're given, like, you better pack a sheet because they won't give you a sheet, kind of a thing, right? Cold night.
Bring your shower shoes.
Yes, exactly. But if you stay in like Asheville, North Carolina, and you do the hostel there, like I did once, it's more like $60 to $70 a night, and it's maybe a private room, or maybe you're staying in a room with somebody else, but it's a pretty nice quarter, and they give you sheets, they give you like, and then there's like, you go to the kitchen and they have bananas and they have things like you can take and go. It's more like 60, 70 a night, which is cheaper than a Hampton Inn, and you're not going to have all those back end fees and stuff like that. So a hostel's not a bad idea, but I would say if you really want to stay in the downtown area and you're trying to watch the budget, the Hampton Inn, the Holiday Inn, like that level is usually pretty good, and it's not too expensive, and you can go through the hotel itself, and you can usually find a decent deal. If you're buying on a weekend, if you're buying, like if you're going in the city, you're going to always pay more. Just remember those things when you're doing hotels.
I never thought about doing a hostel. I mean, even though they might not be as nice, it's like you're not there to stay in the hotel. You're not there to stay at the hostel. You're there to go to the games. You're not going to spend all your time in that room. So it can be just enough. That's actually a really good idea. I never put much thought into that for hostels, but
it's not for everybody. Yeah. But it certainly is a decent option for sure.
Yeah. All right, next question is from Joe A. I think a how-to for logistical elements, driving versus local mass transit versus Uber, or how to purchase tickets not in the sun with great/poor sightlines, bag/purse/ bringing food or drink into a park. Those kinds of things some people might not think of when they're focused on just going to a game, to see a game in a new town.
I mean, absolutely. Like, this is kind of 101 stuff, especially if you are tripping to go to different ballparks and you're trying to cross off bucket lists. These are things that you should know, and you might not know them right off the bat, and that's fine, but like, these are things that you will find in time. Like, okay, these are things that I should really keep in mind. And we'll do more of this stuff in rough guides, and we'll do maybe even episodes devoted to some of these things. But kind of as like an overview of these things, a broader sort of things that you should keep in mind when you're making your trip plans. Yes, every ballpark is different. Every ballpark has its own regulations, FAQs for like what it allows and what it doesn't allow. The bag thing is very, very crazy these days, right? Like, it used to be that you could just bring in a backpack and you were fine.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that. I don't think there's any park in baseball anymore that like allows you to just bring in a backpack. I don't think so.
I mean, unless it's for like medical stuff. I mean, for baby bags, and that's it. But that's it.
Baby bags in some parks, yes. Medical bags, I think in all parks is probably yes. But even the baby bags in some parks might not be like kosher anymore. I think it's for the most part, I think it's still good. Yeah. But every ballpark's different. It changes every year. So as much as like I'm not giving you definitive answers to anything because it changes all the time. And literally every year it gets more strict sometimes. A lot of ballparks are now in the clear bag thing where you have to have a clear plastic bag, and a lot of ballparks will only allow a certain clear plastic bag. It'll be literally a clear. It's called clear. It's a bag that says clear on it. You get it like at like the team store will give you the clear bag, or you have to buy it, or like that. Especially at NFL stadiums, that is the guideline. I think if you go to like a Houston Texans game, it has to be the clear bag. But a clear plastic bag is typically the way to go. I'm trying to say that right. It used to be that the bag has to be a certain size, like 12 by 7 by 12 or something like that, whatever it is, like the size of a small backpack. That has changed in a lot of places where it is literally like you can't bring a bag in. It has to be like a purse size, but it has to be clear again. So like it is very different depending on the park.
I do fanny packs. Like I have a couple of different ones, but they're all about this size, and it's just all I need. I mean, I hope they can still do that next year or the next coming years, because you can't even fit that much stuff in there to begin with. So
yeah, and this brings me to food and drink. So some ballparks do allow you to bring in food. I think at Daikin Park they still allow food. Yes, they do. I have a friend who like you're only allowed a certain size bag, but she fits like a picnic in that bag. Like, and it'll be like lasagna, and it'll be like
lasagna,
it'll like crab cakes. It'll be like a meal, like a really good meal. Like,
please tell me she has like a tablecloth in there with her. That'd be amazing.
I mean, I would hope so. But there's places to eat too in the park that like you can actually spread out and do the thing.
Yeah, and you can bring in a sealed bottle of water too, right?
A sealed
They
bottle of
allow
water.
that?
In fact, I
Yeah.
believe almost every park, I'm pretty sure still every park allows you to bring in a sealed plastic bottle of water, one per person. It has
Hmm.
to be sealed. It has to be clear. You
Hmm.
cannot bring in a soda bottle almost at every park. You can't bring in, I mean, alcohol is not allowed. You can't bring in alcohol to any park.
Right.
But food is allowed at still some parks. I think there was that great meme of the couple who was sitting. It wasn't Philly. It was like City Field, maybe. I forget what park it was. Maybe it was Safeco or T-Mobile. Safeco. T-Mobile in Seattle, where like the woman was like, it was like a big Tupperware of spaghetti and meatballs. Like it just, I love it. Great,
It's
bring it.
so
In.
good.
If you can do it, do it. But like
Yeah.
every park is different. Ballparks and Sun. My God.
Ugh.
So the rule of thumb that I tell people is, when in doubt, the first baseline is usually the place that it gets the sun during the daytime in the day games, and will be the last one to be covered in the evening. But every ballpark is different. Every ballpark is aligned differently and is aligned with the sun differently. Most of the parks are aligned such so that the first baseline is the one that gets the sun. But about half the parks are not. Some of the parks are aligned with the third base side getting more of the sun. Some of the parks are aligned with home plate getting this, or the outfield getting, like, it depends on the ballpark these days.
Yeah.
Make sure you research. My book will tell you. My book will always tell you, because you can look at the book and it'll be updated, whatever it is. But you can go online as well. And if you search like a Reddit thread, or most ballpark websites will even like have, like, even like if you go to like a website that has ballpark tips, they will tell you where the sun is in a lot of these parks. But you should know that going into it, where the sun is, because you don't want to sit in the park that gets the sun unless you do want to sunbathe. Like if you do, that's great.
Or
But if you
party.
want to have the sun in your eye, that stinks. If you're getting sunburnt, that stinks. Like, keep that in mind. And if you're going to a ball game, bring sunblock with you, bring bug spray with you,
Yes.
even if you just have to put it on before you walk in like in the car or whatever it is. Make
Hmm.
sure you bring it with you so that you are ready to go.
A lot of ballparks, actually, if you go to the customer service, they actually have little things of sunscreen there. So if you forget yours and you didn't realize where you're sitting is in direct sunlight, they will help you out there.
Most ballparks are really good about that now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, when in doubt, go to customer service, go to the information booth, and they will help you out. Or just go to the gate and ask someone at the gate, where can I find XYZ? And they will point you in that direction. And then, I mean, we'll get into a lot of these things in future episodes, but transportation options are obviously huge. Every city's different. Look and see like where the metro, the transportation, the public transportation is good. I will tell you, New York is good. New York is a great transportation system. Boston is a good transportation system, and Fenway Park is right there on the line.
Yeah.
San Francisco, Bay Area, fantastic transportation system. Seattle is pretty darn good with its transportation system. Philadelphia is decent, not the cleanest, but not bad, and you can get right to the ballpark with that transportation system. DC isn't that bad. Most of the other cities, and there will be others that, Chicago's pretty decent, but most of the other cities don't have sophisticated transportation systems like that. They'll have bus systems. If you want to do the bus, you can do that. Uber and Lyft and ride sharing is your friend at a lot of ballparks, especially if you want to have some alcoholic beverages. Take a ride share.
Don't drink and drive. Don't drink and drive. It is not worth it. It's not worth it.
If you are driving and you're doing a rental car thing and you're going from city to city and you're doing rental cars, great. But some parks are not good for, like, if you're going to Chicago Wrigley Field, you don't want to park around Wrigley Field. You'll never find a place, and you might get a ticket. You don't want a ticket from another city. It's stupid. Take a ride share, especially at Wrigley, because if you like alcohol, you're going to want to drink before the game at Wrigley or after the game at Wrigleyville. So take a ride share. We'll get into all that stuff with different parks as well. And then other things to just like some tips really quick for those of you who are like trying to make these trips and figure it out. Like, figure out if you want a rental car, if you're going to take transportation before you make the trip. Figure out where you want to stay, if it's in the city or outside of the city. Figure those things out early and what your game plan is going to be, essentially, for how you're going to get around. Figure out where you want to go to eat. I like to get the one thing in every city that is like special. Like if I'm going to Milwaukee, I want to get brats. If I'm going to Minneapolis, I want a Juicy Lucy. Like, figure out where you want to go for that, where that place is, and how you're going to get there, and when you're going to do it. Because you don't want to do it an hour before the game, because you don't want to give yourself that headache, right?
Right.
Plan your time ahead of time. Give yourself time ahead of the game to be around the ballpark. make sure you have enough time to park or get there and like get your bearings straight. Make sure you have enough time to walk around, to see things, to go to a bar or a restaurant, to talk to fans, to make friends. Make sure you have enough time to get to the gate and to get into the ball. If it's your first time at a ballpark, don't just get there at first pitch. Get there 90 minutes before when the gate opens and check out the ballpark. Most gates open 90 minutes before game time. Some are different. They'll vary depending on the day as well. So give yourself time. Don't stress yourself out. If you're doing the trip where you're going to 5 cities in 7 days, good luck. But try, like, if you're doing 5 cities in 7 days, just go to the games. Don't try to like go to cities and do the whole city thing because you don't have time for that stuff. Just go to the ballparks and give yourself as much time as possible before and after the game to relax and see things and like enjoy what you can. But when you're making those trips, if you're going to a city and you're going for a weekend to one city, give yourself enough time to like check out the city. Give yourself enough time to be in the hotel room, take a nap, rest, like get some healthy food in you. Like make sure you have enough time to like get a salad one day for lunch. Like
eat some greens for God's sakes.
Eat some veggies. Take care of yourself when you're out there because look, I'm 40 years old. Alex, I don't know how old you are, but you're probably
I'm
around
40 as well.
So yeah, we try to take care of ourselves. Take care of yourself too.
Yeah.
And also think about when you're at the park and you're looking to spend money, give yourself a budget. Don't just like go willy-nilly because everything is expensive.
You can accidentally spend $100 in 30 minutes and not even realize it. It's just, it's so easy to drop that much money and not even know it.
You're going to spend $100 on like a beer and food and one piece of merch.
Yeah.
Like these days, it's very possible to do that, especially if you're like, oh, I want to get the $30 hot dog that's a foot long. Good luck. But like you could spend a lot of money really quick. So have a plan when you go to the ballpark. Like I want to try this food. Look for where the beer is, and we'll get there in a second. And give yourself a budget. And if there's a thing that you get at every park, whether it's Alex's hats or I get pins at every park, and you can look behind me, I have all the pins. I don't have pins from every ballpark because when I started the whole thing, I didn't get the pin because I didn't know I was doing that. Mm-hmm. But if you're getting the thing at every ballpark that you want to get, make sure you have that in your budget. Like I spend $30 on a hat. I spend $15 on a pin, whatever it is. Like make sure that's in your budget. So a lot of things to know, but those are the basic overview tips. And we'll get into all those things even more later. What's next?
What is next? Mouse fell asleep again. I apologize. All right. Up next, we got from Steve V. Do you limit yourself to MLB ballparks? What would be the best minor league ballpark to visit?
So I mostly do major league parks. I will tell you, there are so many minor league parks that it takes a long time to plot that out, to make those trips. I have a family. I can't necessarily do major league and minor league all the time. I want to get to more minor league parks, so I've been to quite a few, but I want to get to more.
Minor league parks are fun. They're really fun.
Awesome. They are
very
awesome.
Family friendly.
Yeah, super family friendly. Not as affordable as they used to be, but still relatively affordable. And there's always deals. There's always a deal to be had. Like what we do in our family, I have 2 girls, so the 4 of us will go to Sugarland, to the Sugarland Space Cowboys, which is the Astros AAA affiliate.
Yes.
And it's not far away from us, about 20 minutes away from us. We'll go on like a Thursday night or something when they have like, you get 4 tickets for $20 or something like that. And you get the cheaper tickets. And then we try to like share food or share a drink or something like that. Just like kind of keep it as inexpensive as we can. Minor league parks are a lot of fun. I will give a couple that I like a lot. Durham Bulls Athletic Park in Durham, North Carolina, which has been around since 95. It's an HOK park. HOK built a lot of the really cool parks, Camden Yards, and that whole Renaissance of ballpark building is HOK mostly. That's a great park with a cool backdrop, and obviously like they retrofit the Bulls of Bull Durham into that whole history. So like it's kind of cool to be at that park as well for that reason. Louisville Slugger Park is maybe one of the best. It's one of the best. Louisville, Kentucky, it is where the Bats play, which is the Reds AAA affiliate, right by the Ohio River, but it's right next to the Louisville Slugger Factory and Museum, which is totally worth it if you're a baseball fan.
Yeah.
We will talk about those experiences too, like where to go, like Cooperstown, all that stuff, obviously. But Louisville Slugger Field is fun. Carillion Clinic Field in Salem, Virginia. I've been to Salem, Virginia. I've never been to this ballpark because I've always gone to Salem in the fall, and they haven't had, it's like a short season A team that's there, the Salem Red Sox. Uh-huh. It's a cool little country ballpark, and Salem's like It's like a few miles away from Roanoke, Virginia. It's, I think, what is it, Pawn Stars? Like one of those like TV shows is based there because like the shop is like set. I don't know if it's Pawn. It's one of those like pawn, like broker
something
TV
gets
shows
on the History Channel.
On the History Channel.
Yeah, it's just because that's what you affiliate with History's Pawns.
But that's history. But their like their shop is in Salem, Virginia. But the ballpark is there, and it has a view of the Blue Ridge Mountains. I think from third base.
Wow,
and
gorgeous.
The Blue Ridge is awesome. Like it's a really cool. Like if you're there to hike and like do some other things over like a long weekend or a week or whatever, go to a game out there in the summertime. And summertime is a great time to visit because it's still a little warm, but you could still it's doable.
Not Houston warm.
It's not Houston. No, nothing is really. And then I've been here. I don't know if you've been here ever, but Maimonides Park. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly because they've changed the name of it.
It sounds right. Yeah, good job.
Brooklyn. That's where the Cyclones play. If you've never been here, you should go. It is in Coney Island on the boardwalk. It's where the Mets play. Their single A team, the Coney Island, the Brooklyn Cyclones.
Okay.
You've never been there, huh?
I have not. I've never been to Coney Island, but that I love that. They call them Cyclones. That's perfect.
Yeah, well, the Cyclone is the roller coaster that's been in Coney Island for what, a century plus now.
Is it still there, or didn't Sandy wash it away, or they knocked part of it off or something?
I could be wrong. I think they rebuilt it, or they. Okay. I think it got destroyed probably in some way. If you want to look that up, you can, and we can fact check on the episode. But
yeah.
But it's right there on the boardwalk, and the view from like the first baseline from home plate and all that is the boardwalk and the roller coaster and just the fun of being on the beach boardwalk. It's really cool.
How cool.
There are a couple other ballparks. I mean, I've been to like Omaha, the Storm Chasers ballpark there is fun. It's more AAA fields are cool because they're not quite major league stadiums, but they're on the way to it, so it's a little bit more of a sophisticated experience, but still very family friendly. Coca-Cola Park in Allentown, Pennsylvania, where the Phillies AAA team is, that's a really cool, fun, and one of the larger ballparks in the minor leagues, I believe. It's like 20,000, 24,000, something like that. There's a lot of great minor league parks. That's something I really want to do.
I'm assuming you haven't made your way to Savannah for the Bananas. Their park.
I've not been.
Not yet.
Not yet. I want to get to a Bananas game. I was hoping to get to a Bananas game in Houston.
Yeah, when they played in Houston. I had forgotten that I'd signed up for the lottery, and I got an email saying that I was selected, that I could purchase tickets. And I was like, got the email, and I was like, wait, what? And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So, that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. I did, yeah. It was really, really cool.
And that was like their coming out party, like their
first major league ballpark. Yeah.
And they sold out both nights or something.
Well, yeah. And what's great
Roger Clemens was there.
Roger Clemens, Roy Oswalt was there as well.
Oswalt, yeah.
What's hilarious is like the first pitch Roger threw out, the guy hit the home run to the Crawford boxes, and I was like, and we're back, let's go.
Here we are. Yeah, no, hopefully we could do Savannah Bananas in the future.
The party animals, let's go.
Yeah, and they have now they have like a whole circuit of teams. They have Texas. That's the party animals, right? They're out of Texas, aren't they?
Yeah, the party. Are they that? Is that? I didn't know they're out of Texas. I didn't know
there definitely is a team in their circuit now that is out of like Arlington, I think, or like or Texas, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So they're doing more Texas games this year, but it's not the Bananas necessarily. It's going to be some of their like secondary teams, right?
Yeah.
So they're building a league essentially, kind of like the Globetrotters did back in the day.
Exactly. I had a friend who was like, who are they? And I was like, they're the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball. It's really cool.
Amazing.
It's
amazing.
So much fun. And these guys are talented too. They're really talented. And it's so much fun. Yeah. Thrilled for them.
What's up?
All right. Up next, we have a question. These kind of go together from Mike G. Mike G's first. Can you talk about safety around the ballparks, whether we park a car or take the subway? On here, a lot of folks, I'm assuming talking about the Ballparks Chaser on Facebook. I have a lot of folks who will comment on safety, and we get two sides. An impartial opinion would be great. And then a follow-up, we have a question from Kat R. Can you please do an episode debunking the unsafe myths around the park that are in cities? And or people familiar with the histories and highlights of the neighborhoods come on to show folks it's not just a baseball diamond in a sea of crime.
This is going to be... I want to do an episode about this at some point.
Yeah.
I was born and raised in Philadelphia in a neighborhood called Port Richmond. If you've ever seen Rocky, the movie Rocky Balboa, where he lives in the first movie is 10 minutes from where I grew up, essentially.
Wow.
So it is a lower class neighborhood. And people who are from that neighborhood will be like, "Ah, there's crime, there's da da da." And look, I'm not one of those people. I have lived in cities. I love cities. I've been in parts of cities that have higher crime rates, quote unquote, and I've never had trouble anywhere. On my ballpark trips, I've never had trouble anywhere. Look, my place is ballparks, especially now, are in places that there's gentrification around it typically. They've built it up to some extent, and you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. No matter when you go, no matter where you go, you're going to be fine. Don't worry about the area near the ballpark. You're going to go there for the game. You're going to be there a couple hours before, a couple hours after, whatever it is. You're going to be fine. As long as you're not an idiot, and as long as you don't like get publicly drunk or publicly loud or something like that, like that's on you. You will be fine. Things always happen everywhere in this country, whether you're in a city or a rural place or whatever. Things always happen, but they are things that happen. It is like chance. A lot of it is wrong place, wrong time stuff. And we just take that risk by being in the world, by being out in public every single day. You're fine in a city. Don't worry. Now, there are parts of cities that have higher crime rates, that have, neighborhoods that aren't as developed, or neighborhoods where like there's just nothing there for you to do. Like you're probably not going to go there anyways. So you're not going to have to worry about those neighborhoods that you might be worried about when you think about a city, right? Chances are when you're going to a city for the first time, you're going to go to places that are relatively tourist heavy, and wherever the ballpark is, like I said, is going to be pretty well developed. So on that note, don't worry about it. You're fine there. Okay. So most cities are pretty darn safe. I mean, honestly, like when you think of the ratio of crime to the people who live there, it's usually relatively low. And if there are parts of cities that are more, that have higher crime propensity, again, you're not going to probably be there to begin with because they haven't developed those places up, or they're just not places where tourists are usually going. So don't be concerned about it. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
Just use your best judgment, and
yeah.
Don't say, "Oh, that's a nice shortcut to get there down this dark alleyway." Don't do that. But just
right, yeah.
Use your best judgment if you can. Like I know, like we've been talking about traveling alone, but like if you make friends at the ballpark, maybe walk with them to a bar. Don't just walk by yourself everywhere. I mean, groups of people are nice to have, but again, just use your best judgment. Something I don't think I ever mentioned in this is like I will be 4 years sober in September, and so it's like I try to. That's a nice thing to have, or I don't have alcohol to cloud my judgment to do that anymore. So, broken record. Use your best judgment. Trust your gut. Trust your gut. That's a good one too.
And neighborhoods that are maybe thought of by some as the word that I always like kind of like irks me is sketchy. Because I've heard that since I was very little. Like, that's a sketchy neighborhood. What do you mean by sketchy? What does that mean? Like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
Please tell me what you mean by that.
Yeah, go on.
But neighborhoods that are thought of as such, a lot of times are actually like really cool neighborhoods that are historic.
Have the best restaurants, like hidden hole in the wall places.
That have great restaurants and great things to do, and all that stuff. So we'll talk about all those kinds of places, as we go forward, and we do the rough guides and things like that. We'll totally talk about those neighborhoods for sure, and other neighborhoods. Just again, if you're going to a city for the first time, you're probably going to spend time in places that are relatively high trafficked and populated with a lot of things to do and touristy things. And so you're never going to you're not going to have to worry. Just not going to have to worry about like being safe or unsafe or anything like that. You'll be fine. And with subway and around the parks and stuff, cities that have relatively sophisticated public transportation systems, like their subways are good in America. Like they're pretty darn good. So if they have a good system, if there's a subway system, typically you're fine to take the subway and it'll be fine. Especially if you're going like right before or after a game, there'll be a lot of people on the cars. You'll be fine. Again, things happen. I like there have been stories about people who have been hurt on subways in New York recently, and those things are terrible, and I hate to hear them. But they are very small incidents in a larger field of like things that happen every day in the world. So like it's a very small, precedence essentially. So that's my broad answer, and I'm sure we'll do more later.
And our last question is from Sean F. Once you have completed the 30 stadium circuit, other than following your specific team, what is the next carrot on the string that makes you want to keep the chase going?
It's a really good question.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So I've gone to all the 30 that have been there up until last year. Obviously, there's now 2 new parks. I mean, I've been to Steinbrenner Field, so I could say I've been there, but I haven't been to Sutter Health Ballpark. I've never been to Sacramento itself. So that'll be a new thing for me. And maybe I should do that in the next couple of years. And then there'll be Vegas, and then there'll probably be a new ballpark in Kansas City and a new one maybe in Tampa St. Pete and whatever. There'll be more ballparks.
Chase has never done.
Chase has never done, at least for that, right? But I'm a baseball fan. I love baseball. So, I love going back to ballparks because there's always changes and things like Toronto has made a lot of renovations to Rogers Center, and it's a whole different ballpark than it was 10 years ago and 20 years ago. So that is worth it alone for me because I've been there since the renovations. I want to go see what that's like now because I've heard really good things about the outfield renovations at Rogers Center. There are just ballparks I want to go back to again and again. Like I want to get back to, I haven't been to Citizens Bank Park for a Phillies game in years. I really need to get back there, right?
Come on.
Yeah, well,
really?
I've been to other parks, right? It's just been like, and it's a hard ticket these days to get to Citizens Bank Parks. You know, like that is part of it. But also like, I want to go to minor league parks that I haven't been to. I want to go to Puerto Rico for when they go to Puerto Rico for games, or Mexico City when they go to Mexico City for games, or Japan when I would love to go to Tokyo, even if it's just like the NBL by itself. Not even there's major league teams there. Just like during the NBL season, like just go to a game between Yokohama and Hiroshima. Like go to one of those games. That would be so cool.
Yeah, man, I'd love that.
So like there's always stuff to do. There's always new games to go to. That's the carrot for me is like, oh, there's always more baseball to go see.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think I don't know if you know this. I have a couple tattoos, but I think once I get all 30, I want to get like a tattoo commemorating that. I just still kind of like thinking of what it's going to be, but at the same time, it's like the chase is never done. It's going to keep going. There's still going to be new ballparks and hopefully not as many hurricanes that destroy ballparks. But it's because there's so many parks. Like, is there an official count on like how many professional and minor league parks and all that stuff are in the country?
I wish I had that number. I'm sure there is a number out there. I would
at least 30. We know that.
Well, and it's probably more like, I don't know. I'm just doing the math in my head. There's probably about 200 or so.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot.
I mean, when you combine like the short season parks and, if you want to combine like, well, they've tightened up the minor leagues in the last couple of years. So it's not as many as it used to. Well, a lot of those teams played in like, the spring training facilities and on the practice fields and things like that. So it's probably somewhere around 200, I would imagine.
Mm.
That's a lot of parks.
That's it. Yeah,
you can't do that immediately. I know people who have done like, I'm going to 100 minor league parks in one season, right? I know people who have done that kind of a trip and they've chronicled it. And it's like, I'm glad you have the time and the resources and the lack of obligations to do it. That is awesome.
Must be nice.
I wish I could do it, but it's not going to happen right now. So, but yeah, there's always carrots. So thank you for your questions. We appreciate them. We'll get to so many more in the future. Please always keep asking us questions. We'll have a Facebook, Take Me Out. We'll have our socials, Take Me Out. Ask questions all the time, and we will get to them on episodes, whether we do them at the end of episodes or we'll do a batch episode or whatever. We'll do them at some point. So keep asking your questions. We really appreciate them. We'll come back in a second, Alex, and then we'll kind of finish things up here on Take Me Out.
Sounds good. All right, we are back. So I want to let y'all know you can find us on socials. We're on YouTube at Take Me Out Pod, and you can find us on Facebook as well at facebook.com/Take Me Out Pod.
We also are going to have a Patreon, a Take Me Out Patreon, that is going to give you the opportunity to get even more content from us. Yes, we'll have the weekly episodes, but we're going to do a lot more. We'll roll all that stuff out very, very soon, but just be ready. And when we give you the address, if you want to subscribe, we would love you to do that. That'll be coming pretty soon. So keep on the lookout and keep listening as we will talk about more things in the future.
Woo! Fun.
We are finishing up here in our first edition of Take Me Out. The first episode, the very first one.
It's only the beginning.
Before we go, one last thing that we want to talk about, and then we'll get out of here. And that is, Alex, 2025 Major League regular season is not that far away. It's about a month and a half from starting, a little bit less than 2 months. Opening day. Oh my gosh. I have
It's
not
happening.
made any trips yet. I've not made any plans yet. That we will do that very, very soon. What ballparks do you want to go to this year? Or, I mean, I know you have to go to a couple more. There's still a
Yeah,
few
I have
left on your
7
list to hit
more.
all of them.
I have 7
Seven
more.
more. So, what
Yeah.
is on your list for this season coming up?
This season, for sure. It's not until the very, very later part of this season, but I'm going to try to go to Toronto, actually. So, fun thing is, my birthday is in the first my birthday's October 2nd. So it's like at the very end of this season, right before the playoffs start. Baseball is really exciting. And I like to see, like, hey, where are the Astros playing? Are they going to be at home? Are they on the road around my birthday? So they're actually going to be in Toronto in September. And I was like, that's perfect. And I actually spoke to one of my best friends, and she wants to join me. And she's got a tattoo she wants to get in Rochester, New York. So we're thinking we're flying to Toronto, drive across the border, go to Rochester. She can get her tattoo, and I'll just drive over to Cooperstown. And I'm thinking that could be an absolutely amazing trip. So that's something that's in the very, very early works. But Toronto is definitely one of the ones I want to get off my list this year. I also want to try to get to Truist, because I have been to Turner in Atlanta, the old one, but I have not been to their new park. And I saw Toronto, Truist, and I haven't decided on the other one. Actually, last year I almost did Great American Ballpark. I almost did Cincinnati, but I had to cancel it at the last second. So I'm going to try to take that one back up. But Toronto for sure. And, when I actually went to Pittsburgh a few years ago, that was a very, very last second thing. I think I planned it. I decided about 5 days before. So who knows?
So, have you been to Cooperstown before?
I have not. I've been to Little
Ooh.
Cooperstown in St. Petersburg, though.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Man. So
I'm excited. I got Billy Wagner in there this year. Let's go.
That's a great trip because Toronto, I had to look it up. Toronto, Rochester, about 3.5 hours away from each other driving. So yeah, you could do that. And then Rochester to Cooperstown's probably another like 3 hours, right? Like 2.5 to 3 hours, something like that.
Take a week and a half off work and just have fun with one of my best friends.
Yeah, and Toronto I have to get back to. In fact, that might be one of the parks that I want to get to in 2025 because it's been a while and they've made a lot of those outfield renovations and it's just a totally different ballpark than the last time I was there. So that is on my list. I would like to also get back to the East Coast this year. It's funny, like I'm from the East Coast originally, but I haven't really been to the East Coast for baseball in a couple of years now. So every time I go back to Philadelphia, it's usually Thanksgiving time. So Citizens Bank Park, I would love to get back to my old home stomping grounds again. I would like to get back to Nationals Park this year. The New York parks are not necessarily like top of my list, but it would be nice to get to them pretty soon. Also Camden Yards. It's been longer since I've been to Nationals Park. So I want to get the Nationals Park and Citizens Bank, maybe Baltimore, maybe the New York parks, maybe just do half of those in one trip. Toronto would be great to do in a trip if I could do that. Maybe we'll go together. And maybe you don't want that. Maybe you don't want that.
We can meet up, just like go to one game. See you later.
My birthday is in the middle of October, so you're like 2 months older or 2 weeks older than me, I think. So like there you go.
Okay.
No, at some point I'll try to get to Toronto. Maybe it's this year, maybe next year, whatever. But that's on the list. Those are the pressing ones, and actually Cincinnati Great American is on the list too because I haven't been there in a bit. Cleveland I'd love to get to soon. Pittsburgh I'd love to get to soon. But those are the ones that are most pressing. But I think for me it's East Coast, Nationals Park, back to Philly, and then Toronto to see the outfield adjustments in the next year or two. Those are the ones that are really most important for me.
I'd like to get back to Fenway. Fenway is becoming, it's so cool, but also my mom lives about 30 minutes. She just moved to Massachusetts about a couple of years ago, and she lives about 30 minutes from Boston. She lives in Marblehead, which is, 3 miles from Salem. And it's so cool. But now I have an extra little excuse to go up and visit her. It's like, hi, it's so good to see you. I have to go real fast, but I'll be back.
That's right.
Free lodging too. It's great.
Yeah, and you need that in Boston for sure. Because it's really tough to get places to stay there. But Fenway, when we talk about Fenway, I will talk about Fenway.
It's gonna be great.
I was there a couple of years ago, so it's not most pressing, but it's every time I go, it's amazing. So that's it. So that's the first episode of Take Me Out. That we're done. We did it. We'll be back here next week, and we will talk about the Grapefruit League in Florida and spring training. And my gosh, we'll be pitchers and catchers will be reporting, and we'll be thinking about the sun. Well, it's already sunny here. We'll think about the sun. We'll think about going to Frenchie's for grouper sandwiches. We'll think about all the fun things that you do in spring training. That'll be coming next week on Take Me Out. Thank you so much for listening. For Alex, do you want to say bye? I mean, I don't want to just like hog the space.
Well, just as Ariana Grande, as Glinda and Elf and Wicked said, it's not goodbye, it's farewell.
And we'll see you next weekend. We'll see you next week with that. I'm Tim. That's Alex. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.